Today, we're really focusing in on Narcotics Anonymous.
Right. We've looked at shared sources, things like the NA basic text, the step working guides.
And our goal here is to kind of distill that down for you, give you a clear, structured overview.
Yeah, a solid understanding of how NA looks at addiction and, importantly, recovery.
We want to pull out those core insights, the themes, the roadmap they offer through, the 12 steps.
Exactly. So you get a really useful picture of the program.
Okay, so let's start with NA's view on addiction itself. The sources seem very clear it's an illness.
Absolutely. Chronic, progressive, not a moral issue, not about lacking willpower. That's fundamental.
The basic text mentions using drugs to cover feelings, doing anything to get them.
Right, and often the person using doesn't even see how destructive it's become. It sort of creeps up.
It sounds like a trap, trying to escape pain, but the problems just get worse when the drugs wear off.
Precisely, a really vicious cycle, and the sources point to that loss of control. It becomes an obsession, a compulsion.
And it changes people, personality-wise.
Yeah, often negatively. Dishonesty, self-centeredness, that kind of thing.
Okay, so given that view of addiction as a disease, let's talk about honesty. It seems, absolutely central in NA.
Oh, completely. It's presented as a core spiritual principle. You can't really do the program without it.
It's one of those how principles, right? Honesty, open-mindedness, willingness.
Exactly. Those three are foundational, and honesty isn't like a one-shot deal.
No, it seems like something that grows as you work the steps.
That's right. It starts right at step one, admitting the truth about your drug use, your life. That first act of honesty with yourself.
Breaking through denial.
Yeah, which is huge in addiction. The step guides have questions specifically to help with that unflinching honesty.
And then it deepens. Like in step 4, the moral inventory.
Oh, absolutely. Step 4 demands serious self-honesty, examining character defects, resentments, fears, harms done.
Putting it on paper must make it harder to hide from.
It does. It exposes the lies you tell yourself. It's about facing some potentially painful truths.
And step 5 sounds even more intense, admitting all that to God, yourself, and another person.
It's a profound level of honesty, yeah. Requires real integrity. It's about breaking that pattern of denial out loud, taking responsibility.
Facing reality, basically.
Squarely. And it doesn't stop there. Step 8 involves honesty, enlisting people harmed. Step 10 is about daily honesty, admitting when you're wrong promptly.
And step 12, practicing honesty in all your affairs.
Right. It becomes a way of life. Your ability to be honest grows with your recovery. It's dynamic.
Okay, let's talk about open-mindedness.
Yeah.
That also comes up constantly alongside honesty.
Just as crucial, another fundamental spiritual principle, the sources are clear, being closed-minded, intolerant towards these principles. That just blocks recovery.
It seems essential for actually accepting help, right?
And
working the steps.
Definitely. You need to be open to suggestions, open to the idea of a higher power.
And that higher power concept seems very open itself.
It really is. NA is spiritual, not religious. That's a key distinction. It allows you to find your own understanding of a power greater than yourself. No dogma imposed.
So open-mindedness lets people connect spiritually in their own way.
Yes, and that fosters personal growth, acceptance of the program, and it actually helps unify the fellowship.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And the third one, of that trio willingness, that sounds like a very active thing in NA.
It is. It's presented as an active, conscious choice. It's the key that unlocks the program, really. Being receptive, taking suggestions, even if they feel uncomfortable.
It's not just agreeing in theory, it's doing.
Exactly. It's about actively surrendering that old way of thinking, that resistance to help. It's the engine, you could say.
And our notes show it pops up everywhere. Step 1, willing to admit powerlessness. Step 3, willing to turn things over.
Step 4 needs willingness for the inventory. Step 6, becoming willing to have defects removed. Step 8, willing to make amends.
Step 12, willingness to practice the principles daily.
It's threaded through the entire process. It's that constant readiness to apply the principles and take the necessary actions. It propels you forward.
These principles really seem interconnected, like surrender that feels like it has to come first, before you can even be willing.
Surrender is absolutely foundational, indispensable. And NA reframes it, it's not defeat.
Right, it's more like letting go.
Exactly, letting go of reservations and being willing to try a different approach, shifting from self-will to seeking guidance.
Which connects right back to step 1, admitting you're powerless and life's unmanageable.
Precisely. That admission is the surrender. Accepting your own way wasn't working.
It's not weakness, it's opening the door to accept help.
That's exactly how the sources describe it. A positive, courageous action that allows help to come in.
Humility is another big one that seems woven throughout the whole program.
Yes, another key how principle. It's fundamental for even approaching the program, for asking for help. You need that humility.
And again, it seems present in almost every step, acknowledging powerlessness in 1, believing in a higher power in 2, turning things over in 3.
Making the inventory in 4, admitting wrongs in 5, becoming ready in 6, humbly asking in 7.
Willingness for amends in 8, making them in 9, practicing principles in 12. It's everywhere.
It really is, and it's important to distinguish it from humiliation. Humility in NA is about a realistic self-view, seeing yourself clearly, strengths and weaknesses.
Not shame-based, but reality-based.
Exactly. That realistic self-perception is crucial for working the steps, for healthy relationships and recovery, and for connecting with that higher power.
Okay, what about faith and trust? They seem pretty important too.
Crucial. Faith often comes first, the belief that recovery is possible, that the program can work. Trust develops as you act on that faith and see positive results.
Like in step 3, making that decision to turn things over requires faith.
Absolutely. Faith gives you the capacity for that decision, for action. It fuels surrender, approaching with hope. It fuels courage, believing change is possible.
And patience too. Recovery isn't instant.
Right. Faith helps with patience, trusting the process. And it's key for step 11, developing that conscious contact with a higher power. Trust grows as faith is validated by experience.
Acceptance also seems vital. Accepting the addiction itself, for starters.
That's the beginning. Accepting you have this disease and that these steps are the way to deal with it. That acceptance is nurtured by the fellowship, by the relationship with a higher power.
And accepting yourself, flaws and all, seems like a prerequisite for accepting others.
It really is. That self-acceptance is foundational. As you accept yourself, you become much more able to accept others non-judgmentally, which is vital for spiritual growth and for the unity of the fellowship.
And building on acceptance, compassion comes up too.
Yes, a vital spiritual principle, closely linked to acceptance, forgiveness of self and others, and service. It supports the traditions, too, like tolerance and anonymity.
It seems like working the steps, understanding your own struggles, would naturally lead to more empathy for others.
That's the idea. Moving past resentment and self-pity towards understanding, it changes how you interact with people, how you offer service with kindness, without judgment. And it ties into self-forgiveness, too, practicing compassion daily.
Okay, let's zoom in on some specific steps. Step 3, making that decision to turn your will and life over. That feels like a huge turning point.
It absolutely is. A conscious, pivotal decision. It builds on the surrender in step 1 and the hope from step 2, leading to that willingness we talked about.
And turning over isn't passive, is it? It's about trust and allowing care.
Exactly. Not giving up responsibility, but letting go of that harmful self-will, trusting a higher power for guidance. Key principles here are surrender, willingness, faith, trust, commitment, and honesty about your beliefs.
How do people put that into practice?
Things like actively allowing a higher power to work, maybe through prayer, like the 3rd step prayer, staying clean, taking sponsor suggestions, developing that personal spiritual connection, surrendering control when needed, and just continuing with the next steps.
And the outcome. What changes?
More serenity, hopefully,
Right.
more positive thinking, seeing the world less distortedly. It's the start of seeking God's will, leading towards that spiritual awakening.
Then step 4, the searching and fearless moral inventory. Sounds daunting.
It's definitely a major step, a deep dive. The purpose is to sort through the confusion of addiction, find your true self, and shed those burdens holding you back. It builds on steps 1 to 3.
Requires honesty, courage, willingness again.
For sure, and faith, thoroughness. It's like a spiritual house cleaning. You typically write it down, systematically look at your life liabilities like guilt, shame, resentment, but also assets, good qualities, relationships too, focusing on your part.
Looking at past and present behavior.
Yes. And the advice is often to just write, don't worry about step 5 yet. Be consistent. Face the fear. Don't keep secrets.
What are the benefits of doing that?
Huge relief, often. Less confusion. Separating fantasy from reality. Taking responsibility. Resolving guilt and resentment. It brings spiritual rewards, integrity. Charts a new course. And it's often ongoing. Like peeling an onion, you revisit it and find deeper layers.
Okay, moving forward. Step 6, becoming entirely ready to have God remove defects of character. That sounds like bridging knowing and wanting change.
Exactly. It's that critical bridge. You've identified the flaws in step 4. Now step 6 is about becoming genuinely willing, truly ready to let them go and embrace real change.
And step 7 follows right on its heels. Humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings.
The direct action after the readiness of 6, humility is the absolute core here. Realistic self-view, knowing you need help from that higher power. It's a deeper surrender than step 1, accepting powerlessness over these specific shortcomings.
So it involves faith, trust, patience again.
Yes, and commitment, courage. The key is moving from thinking about it to actively asking for help, usually through prayer or some form of connection.
It's about letting the higher power do the removing.
Yes, removing the destructive aspects, giving freedom from acting on them. The result is hopefully well-being, spiritual growth, and getting ready for step 8.
And step 8 is making that list of people harmed and becoming willing to make amends. That sounds tough.
It can be one of the toughest, yeah. It's about starting to make peace, getting freedom from guilt, taking responsibility. It relies heavily on the honesty and courage from steps 4 and 5.
And the willingness comes from step 7.
Well, willingness is cultivated throughout, but step 7's humility helps build the willingness needed here. You use the 4th step inventory to identify who was harmed physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, intentionally or not.
And you write it down.
Yes, make a written list. It involves confronting denial, the tendency to feel like a victim, separating what happened to you from what you did.
And becoming willing, that's key, right? Before you actually do anything.
Absolutely. A genuine desire to repair the damage, no matter how the other person reacts. Fear is a huge obstacle here. You can't go in expecting excuses or forcing forgiveness.
Key principles: honesty, courage, willingness.
And compassion. Sponsors and the fellowship are vital supports here. Step 8 is really the practical prep work for step 9. That willingness makes the list and the amends in 9 possible.
And finally, step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening and carrying the message, that sounds like the culmination.
It is, in many ways.
Yeah.
But the source's stress, it's the result of working the first 11 steps diligently. It's not sudden magic, usually.
It's a progressive change.
Yes, a fundamental change in consciousness, in your spiritual condition. You see it in how people live by spiritual principles, more peace, concern for others, gratitude, wanting to serve.
And the action is twofold: carrying the message.
Right. Sharing your experience, strength, and hope with others still suffering. It's gratitude in action, and it's therapeutic. One addict helping another is powerful.
And the second part.
Practicing these principles in all your affairs, applying honesty, humility, compassion, everything to daily life, allowing the message.
So step 12 connects back to everything before it.
Deeply. Each step contributes to that awakening. And it's not an end point. It's the start of ongoing recovery. Lifelong journeys supported by meetings, sponsorship, service. The step guides have prompts to help apply it daily.
Beyond the steps, the sources also really emphasize the 12 traditions.
Absolutely. The traditions guide the fellowship itself, ensure unity, stability. They're spiritual principles for the group, making sure NA can fulfill its main purpose,
Which is?
carrying the message of recovery. The traditions promote unity, inclusivity. Tradition 1 puts common welfare first. Tradition 3 says the only requirement is a desire to stop using. Anonymity is huge too.
Tradition 12, anonymity as the spiritual foundation.
Right. Principles before personalities. It fosters equality, belonging. The traditions also guide groups practically self-support, not being professional, autonomy, but responsibility to the principles.
So the traditions create the space for the steps to work.
Exactly. They create that supportive, stable environment where individuals can focus on their recovery through the steps.
What about relapse? And just staying clean long term? The sources must address that.
They do. Relapse is seen as a setback in a chronic illness, not a failure. But it's serious, potentially fatal. Factors include holding on to reservations, not prioritizing recovery, dishonesty, complacency, resentments, unrealistic expectations, trying to go it alone.
And NA's approach if it happens.
Get back to meetings immediately, be honest, recommit, work with your sponsor, learn from it.
And long-term recovery. How is that sustained?
It's a daily process, just for today. Finding a better way of life. It involves constantly applying NA principles, meetings, working the steps, especially 10 and 11, for ongoing inventory and spiritual connection.
Making amends, healthy relationships, service.
Exactly.
There.
Honesty, sponsorship, living by spiritual principles. The benefits are huge. Purpose, growth, connection, stability, self-acceptance, peace, learning how to live, really.
There's also mention of this link between reflection and action.
Yeah. Both are essential. Living the program as a way of life needs both. The step guides have those personal reflection prompts to help you dig deeper into the principles.
They help personalize it, connect emotionally.
Yes, encourage self-discovery, honest self-examination. But reflection isn't enough on its own. The actionable next steps in the guides turn those insights into practice.
Like prayer, meditation, talking to a sponsor, inventory, amends, service.
Right. Reflection informs the action, action deepens the reflection. It creates this cycle of growth. They feed each other.
And you mentioned humbly asking in step 7. The sources distinguish that from demanding.
Yes, that's important. Humbly asking requires humility, recognizing dependence on a higher power, plus faith, trust, surrender. Demanding comes from self-will, lack of humility, thinking you know best. The prompts for step 7 help explore that difference.
What about the timeline? People must wonder how long recovery takes.
The sources stress it's not overnight. Change can be uneven. Patience is key, living just for today, trusting the process. Reflection prompts often encourage balancing asking for help with taking personal responsibility for growth.
So the prompts empower people to understand their own journey.
Exactly. That personal understanding gives you the authentic conviction needed to then carry that message of hope effectively to someone else who's struggling.
Okay, so wrapping this up, it really sounds like NA provides a comprehensive path. Recovery from addiction seen as the disease, tackled through spiritual principles.
Right, with community support being vital. Honesty, open-mindedness, willingness, surrender, humility. They aren't just ideas, they're tools.
And the 12 steps offer that structure for self-reflection and action, leading towards real change.
Exactly. Relapse is acknowledged, but long-term recovery is presented as this ongoing, rewarding journey.
So here's a final thought for you, listening. Given NA's profound emphasis on personal honesty and self-awareness, what parts of your own life, maybe even outside addiction, could benefit from that kind of fearless and searching look?
And if any of this resonated or just sparked some curiosity, maybe look deeper into the 12 steps themselves, or check out the Narcotics Anonymous basic text. It's a really rich resource, offering a unique perspective on addiction and recovery.